You ready? CJ, you ready? All right, here we go. No, Smithfield Town Council, December 20th, 2021. Madam Clerk, will you lead us in the prayer and the pledge, please? Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Open forum pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-6. I see we have one person on the list for open forum. Mr. Clifford?
Mike Clifford, 489 Black Plain Road. I just have a couple of observations. Oh, okay. I know what the last meeting or the previous meeting, 2 meetings ago, Mr. Igliozzi may have given an opinion that bond council had an issue with putting more than one choice on the ballot. I've called everybody there is at the State House. I've called the Secretary of State's office. I can find nobody who objects to that. And I've also spoken to an attorney who is a legislator who works with attorneys who are bond council people, and they don't see a problem with it. It's a simple type question that you could structure. Vote for one of the three. One, $5 million in bonds for the renovation of the current police station. 2, 18.3 million for whatever. And the third one, vote for one of the three. And nobody seems to have a problem with it. So I'd like to see if we could get something in writing from bond counsel explaining what his issue is with that type of ballot question and why why he objects to it, because nobody in the State House seems to understand where the problem comes from. So the second thing is I've been emailing people asking when they were going to hold, or if we're going to hold, the town is going to hold the pre-budget forecast meeting, which is required by General Law 16.2-21-.2. And I've emailed the superintendent, I've emailed Mr. Beauregard and Mr. Lombardi, because it's supposed to be a meeting between the school committee and the town council to discuss revenues and projections for the upcoming 3 years. Things were supposed to be done before November 1st, and then the meeting was supposed to be held before December 31st. I know a lot of communities still hold those meetings, and they do so not just in December. They have a mutual agreement with the school committee to defer until January, but those meetings are being held. And if you go look on the town of Burrillville's website, you'll see Mr. Wood's voluminous report from last year, where he did a PowerPoint presentation on the revenue flow for the town. And there was one also given at that meeting by the superintendent of schools. I think it's a law that's still in effect, so I was wondering if anybody has asked Mr. Igliozzi if it's a requirement and if you are required to comply with the requirement, the regulation. Nobody wants to ask Mr. Igliozzi that.
I'll definitely. You make a good point. I'll look into that for sure.
Well, I haven't heard from anybody for over a week. I sent the administrator an email over a week and a half ago. And yours, I sent, I think, last week at the...
Yeah, I'm not going to respond to your emails. You're the only person in town who I won't respond to,
Okay.
but I will respond to you up here on the, when you're up at the podium.
Well, thank you for discriminating against.
It's not a discrimination.
It
It's
is a
just
discrimination.
for somebody who has done the things that you have done personally. I'm not going to respond to your emails. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. And Mr. Zielinski won't be responding either? Is that what the game is here?
I've read your email, Mr. Clifford.
Okay, so we don't get answers when we come to the meeting and speak under good and welfare, and we don't get answers when we put the questions in writing. And that's your idea of transparency.
Well, I will tell you this, getting ahead of ourselves, I know that Mr. Corvo will have something on the agenda for the next meeting about exactly that meeting, so.
Okay, the next question is good and welfare For good and welfare, could I see the, could somebody please point to where is there a written rule that forbids council members from having a dialogue with a taxpayer when they speak under good and welfare? Because I looked on the website, I can't find anything. So could somebody guide me to where that is? Or email it to me, or have someone email it to me? Because I can't find that rule. So does a written rule exist?
I'm not sure.
Well, you quoted it.
I never quoted it. I just said that's the rule. That's the council rule. I didn't say there's any written rule out there.
Well, when did the council enact that rule?
In 2016, I was the council president. It was the rule back then. I believe it was the rule when Mr. Vadney was the council president, and it continues to be the rule.
Okay. The last thing I have to ask is, well, it's more of a statement, and I'm going to be happy to document every time there's an issue that I think I've been discriminated against, and I'm going to bring one up right now. I asked to go to the, I called the town finance director, and I asked for some information about the budget committee meeting that was going to be held, where she was going to be presenting some information about the tax exemption for the veterans. And I explained to her that I really wanted to go to the meeting, but I was reluctant to go in person when I heard that it was just the budget committee in a room that was upstairs on the second floor, not a big room. I've been in contact with someone who has COVID, was seriously ill with COVID, and although the Department of Ed says you can go to a meeting if you wear a mask, I find it hard to believe that if you have contact with that person who has that illness 24/7, that you could, feel free to go out and give everybody the germs. So I was reluctant to go because of that. And she said, I'd appreciate your not going, actually. And she giggled, and she said, let me see if we can do this where, when that topic comes up on the agenda, I can call, and you can speak by phone. I said, thank you. She called me back several minutes later and told me that Mr. Zielinski had told her, and she read to me the ordinance, that not the ordinance, but a live streaming requirement that you have to be present to participate. That live streaming requirement applies to 3 types of meetings: for the planning board, for the zoning board, and for the town council. It does not apply to every other board in town. Mr. Vadney on the MBRTF committee, I went into one of his meetings 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe, I don't know, it seems like losing track of time, and he had the architect on Zoom. Didn't make Zoom available to the public, but had the architect on Zoom. So if he's going to be allowed to have a guest on Zoom without advertising it, and then he's either not complying with what Mr. Zielinski believes is the requirement of live streaming meetings and how you can't have a guest there, or you're discriminating against me when you block me from going to that meeting. If the committee had said, sure, that's a good idea, I'd appreciate that. So, you're trying to prevent people from getting a disease that some people do take seriously, and you'd rather I go into a room and contaminate everybody, possibly. I take a quick test before I go to those things, but I don't believe they're that reliable either. So I don't understand why I was blocked from going to that, but I do want to document that I believe that was an act of discrimination as well. When we had the pandemic, I asked to come into this room to look at some records in the sewer department. The administrator, Mr. Ozowski, forbid me to come in here. They were allowing reporters to come in. They were allowing surveyors to come in. They were allowing title examiners to come in. Everybody else had access to this room. They brought the documents down, and you were able to examine them there. I had to pay for the records to be Xerox and put on a thumb drive. So I'm just, keeping tally and jotting all these down, but at a certain point, there is going to be some action here, and I don't think people understand how severe it is. I worked with a woman phys ed teacher in the 1980s on a discrimination issue as my position in the union at the time, and she won a nice big fat settlement in the federal courts for discrimination. And so it does happen, folks, and I don't understand why you're so blatant about it, but that's fine by me. Thank you.
I just got to address one quick thing.
Yeah.
Your choice of words. I take exception to.
Oh, good.
Because there have been people historically that have been discriminated against, okay? And what they've been through as a result of discrimination is nothing compared to what you're talking about. What you are dealing with is not
John,
discrimination.
Any type of
You are
discrimination.
not being, it's
is-
not discrimination.
Any type of
Okay.
discrimination is an embarrassment.
All right. Is there anybody else that would like to be heard for open forum? Okay, we're going to move on. Discussion by council vote or other action on payment of bills. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the bills? I actually had one question. It's more of a curiosity thing. What are dash gloves? Oh, I'm sorry. Page 4 of 15. What are they?
Dash is a company that makes latex nitrile gloves that they train.
Okay.
They triple their price since COVID.
Oh, really? All right, that's all I was wondering.
So that's.
I wasn't questioning the payment, I was just curious.
It's name brand.
Okay,
They're nitrile gloves.
all right. Like I said, I wasn't questioning, I was just curious what it was.
Yeah, they're expensive. I looked at the same thing.
You can't get them, it's supply chain and stuff like that.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any comments about the, or questions about the payment of the bills? Motion to approve?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve total payment of bills of $2,897,437.56.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. That was Ms. O'Hara, Mrs. O'Hara, sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on the consent agenda. All items in this section are considered in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilor so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items they would like removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to remove the minutes from December 6th and December 13th.
Okay. Anybody else? I would like to remove, number 1, the animal control monthly report. Anybody else? And I'm also going to remove the North Smithfield Municipal Court monthly report. Okay, Ms. Alves, would you like to begin?
Sure. Okay, on the minutes of December 6th.
Mr. President, you have to approve the consent agenda with the items removed before we do that.
So we will, is there a motion to approve the? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, less the items that had just been removed?
So moved.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve a consent agenda of Town Council minutes November 15th and the 17th of 2021. The North Smithfield Police Department monthly report for November of 2021, and the North Smithfield Fire Department monthly report for November of 2021.
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. I'm sorry, now, Ms. Alves?
Thank you. So on the minutes of December 6th, on the last page, for the appointments to the zoning board, I just wanted to make, put in the minutes that I second it, but with the notation to make sure that he hasn't served more than the 10-year period. I did look into that, and he has not served consecutive. Do you still want me to put that in there? If you could just have it in the minutes, just so that we know we did check it and, you know, made sure that he was within that. And then, also further down, it says Smithfield School Department. Can you just add North Smithfield School Department? You're welcome.
And I asked for the animal control monthly report. I just wanted to point out to Mr. Zelinski, you might want to just know this, I had a conversation with the dog officer who could not have been nicer. She didn't know who I was. I called her, I had some questions about looking for dogs. She went above and beyond, as far as I'm concerned. She had a great attitude, and like I said, she didn't know who I was, and she bent over backwards to help me. So I just thought you should know that.
I appreciate that, Mr. President. Thank you. I will express your gratitude to her.
Thank you. And then I also asked for the North Smithfield Municipal Court to be pulled. Just as a quick comment, I will, just for your own information, I'm going to start, at the next meeting, I'd like to discuss the possibility of moving the municipal court to this building instead of over at Scouters Hall. For the purpose of, that'd be the step one in getting the seniors over, for one thing, moving the seniors over here, but number two, this is a much better location. They're just gonna have to make a small adjustment, but,
The cash room is the biggest, secure cash room where clerk takes the money for court proceedings. So it's in a separate locked room.
Do they take the money with them at night?
Yeah, they keep it at the police station.
So would it be considered secure if we just have an officer back there with her, rather than behind a window?
Yeah, I guess we could work some, there just needs to be some barrier. I'll talk to Mike down at RITT. The state inspects and visits the municipal courts to make sure they're set up the right way,
Mhm.
with security, the right process, and the chief, the judges, not the judges' courts, but the bench and all that. So I'll talk to Peter, maybe I'll ask Mike, if that's okay, because I thought that when.
Yes.
yeah, I was gonna suggest that. I think, that was gonna be my suggestion, because that, is out of the way, and,
Just a physical barrier, so,
Yeah.
It gets tested at the
Right.
cash window.
okay.
So we have an emergency bell per office, so if the officer, because it's 2 rooms now, the general municipal court, and then the clerk's office is another room. So she has a panic button, so if we need to get in there, we would. And if there's issues, we do have an officer stand by at the window, just to move people along and say, look, you don't argue. A lot of people want to argue with kids.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, do you think Tafita would mind coming to the next meeting, and she can discuss with us what the pros and cons of this would be?
Yeah, sure.
And then she can also maybe kind of guide us as far as what we're gonna need, and,
Right, I can have a meeting with Captain Rich, who's the administrator,
okay,
and the prosecutor's lieutenant, and
all right.
Tafita, we could, because I had mentioned, and that was in a short discussion we had with everything going on with the building, that was a concern. But there is possible ways to get around.
This is a nice setup.
She uses a laptop, she brings it in with the air card and a swipe credit card, that goes with her back to the station, so it's totally mobile. Just the printer, there's a printer there that stays there, there's some files that stay there, like forms and sheets and, cruiser reports that they've been, the mileage has been done, and they can track cars, so, great out. But, yeah, I think we can do it.
Okay.
Yeah, because setting up a panic button is nothing, and we could even put like a Ring camera back there or something.
Yeah. Well, it gets that full?
There is no room.
When I was, once in a while, like when we had the Old Smithfield Road changed to one way, we had like 100 people.
Did you really?
But usually if 100, and this is just a guesstimation, if 100 people, if 80 to 100 people are scheduled to go, on that day, maybe 50 or 40 will show up. They'll pay the last day,
Right.
or they'll just mail it in and not go. And then you have 30 days from there to have a license, notification of suspension.
Okay.
So generally, it's 60%, and thereabouts, that from what's scheduled for a trial and who actually physically shows up.
Okay.
So I think 80 would be sufficient. And if always have, a say in it to say, go to, don't be afraid to go to the next month, because we have that ability, because it goes out to patrol, the dates there to assign to RITT, district court, and
Right.
so we have an ability to kind of move it, kick the ball down the road, so to speak, if we have like a lot of people that receive tickets that month or that 2-week period.
Mrs. Zelinski, do you want to add to this?
Yes, Mr. President. Back at the beginning of 2021, we did have initial dialogue here with Tafita, Captain Ridge, Judge Jarrett, and there were a few concerns about setting it up properly. And what we initially discussed was in that corner over there by the aerial photo over by the thermostat controls, would be to set up some type of judge, the bench for the judge. And as Chief Lafferty was saying, this room back here is very secure, so people could come into this room to make their, pay their fines and exit out this door as opposed to walking back through the process. So there has been some preliminary thought given to it. I certainly would like to, it's a good idea to bring Tafita in because she really does administrate it, and Judge Jarrett, and of course the chief or Captain Ridge. But we did have some of that conversation back early winter last year.
The other issue that was brought up is, it's a recorded hearing, both the first appearance and the trial. So if you have someone speaking, like during the transaction, it may come over the recording of the proceeding of the next trial that's heard by the judge, so that would have to be, that's another reason why we have another hearing, because it keeps out of sound. Some people are really loud.
Yeah.
It's tough to have that recorded to hear everything clear. Because if there's an appeal meeting, that recording gets clipped, burnt to a CD, sent to RITT. I think Judge Ippolito presides over that, reviews the appeals.
All right, so it's not as easy as I had hoped, but it can be done, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, and that, there's no two ways out of it, that's the problem with that.
I'm sure we
Okay.
can figure it
Yeah.
out. I'm sure we can figure it out if we,
All right, thank you. Steve, it was lucky you were here tonight.
Mr. President, can I?
Yes,
can I
please.
answer the 13th? So on the minutes of the 13th, second page down at the bottom where it said that I stated the town should start working on Scouters Hall to bring up to code for seniors in municipal court, and strongly suggested the town be diligent in finding a permanent location for the senior center. So what I had said is that Scouters, we could combine the scouts and the seniors and move municipal court here, and that we should start looking into doing renovations at Scouters, and maybe think that that's the option for the senior center, not Hollowell.
Did I didn't mean to interrupt you. Why, did I jump ahead of you? Okay. You want
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the items that were removed from the consent agenda as amended.
any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on appointments to town boards and commissions. We have one here, Personnel Board, a 2-year term that would expire on 11/30/23, and we do have an application that is in your packet.
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Sandra Soers to a 2-year term that would expire on 11/30/2023 to the Personnel Board.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion on Sandra Soers? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Old business, discussion by council vote or other action on update of municipal building review task force. We're gonna kill two birds with one stone on this one, Mr. Nordstrom, so we're gonna move agenda item under new business E. Discussion by council vote or other action on revised analysis for police station, renovation or improvement of existing police station, and/or construction of new police station. Mr. Nordstrom?
Good evening. First thing I'd like to look at is the memo to the council with the attachments from Tecton. After the November 17th public hearing, we had a brief discussion with Jeff and Rebecca from Tecton, and they thought they had enough information to take a stab at updating the cost. They presented that to the task force on December 1st, and we, as a group with the police chief, went over the numbers, made some further reductions, and they revised their options, which is in that attachment, which is a little bit complicated to explain, but hopefully I can simplify it. VE option A includes the option to, at some day, have the municipal court in the police station, but the court staff office, the judge's restroom, the only thing that would be left would be the judge's chamber, which is one office. The chief's restroom was eliminated. The chief's conference room was eliminated. If you go on page 2 of 3 under option A, and there's an explanation in the cover letter from Tecton. There were originally 4 vehicle bays, which consisted of 2 sally ports, a vehicle processing bay, and a vehicle maintenance bay. Those have been reduced, so there's 2 sally ports, and they'll be separated by a mesh wall, mesh fence. The vehicle processing bay is eliminated with the expectation that that other bay at the sally port can be used. That could also be used for vehicle maintenance. The fitness room was reduced by 260 square feet. The number of cells was reduced from 7 to 5. As I mentioned before, the vehicle storage was reduced to 1 bay. Baby seat storage and baby seat storage was also eliminated. The net effect under option A would be reduction to 13,875 square feet of program space. They tackle on another 30% because when they do the sizing of the building, they're basing it on the inside wall-to-wall dimensions, so it doesn't include hallways or duct space going vertically. So the net size for the building would be 18,038 square feet. Construction cost would be $13,605,600. And then soft costs, which would be the design fees, construction services, interior furnishings, et cetera, would bring the project costs up to $16,394,000. 000, yeah. Yep. So I hope that makes sense. If it does, then option B will be easier to go through. Option B is actually total elimination of the court, municipal court, which resulted in a reduction in size for that multipurpose room. Also a reduction in the size of the workout area. Chief's restroom was eliminated, conference room was eliminated, a lot of the same things that were in option A. The big difference being that's without provisions for the municipal court. The net effect of that is 14,780 square feet of inside usable space, total square footage of 19,240, I think. And then construction cost will be $12,883,600. Soft cost would be $2,042,400. So the total opinion of project cost is $15,543,400. So a lot of information, and what they did is they took the original sizing out of the report and just crossed out the numbers and revised them, so you could see where the changes were. Takes a fair amount of flipping back and forth from the cover page to look at it. I'm here to answer any questions.
Mr. Notram, just to confirm, the option B is actually 18,038 square feet, right?
Yeah, I might have flipped the page when I was talking to you all.
Okay.
If you look at my cover letter, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if you can, on their cover letter, you can see it's 18,038. So I might have read the same number twice, both options. So again, as I've tried to explain before, the premise of this is it was a report comparing two alternatives. It's a conceptual design. If the option is to go ahead with a new police station, still a lot of work that has to be done. It has to be designed. You wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't think you'd want to pursue that until the vote on the bond would be done. And then it would just proceed from that point. And once they're in design, the sizing and the numbers could change. There'd be a whole lot more input in sitting down and looking at floor plans and trying to be a little bit more efficient on how space is right off the bat. Without the municipal court, that totally changes the second floor. So it could essentially be like what we did in this building, where the second floor is secure, and the open area is the first floor, the public area, if you will. So it can change.
Do you think the task force and police chief and the council, could you think it's something that we could look at as having a working session so that we could kind of discuss the plans and kind of, so we understand what the task force is thinking about, what the police chief is, so we're all kind of on the same page? Because when you look at the plans, like, I've looked at it several times, I think it only has like 2 interview rooms, right? Yeah, I think there's it seems like some things are like
Want 'em?
under,
Well, there's an interview in the cellar, there's an interview off the lobby, and there's an interview for detectives. So I think there's at least 3.
but would you always use the interview room? Wouldn't just the detectives use that, or would that?
So if they invite someone in to give a statement or to question on anything, that room would be separate and apart from the lobby interview room, because that interview room would have to be at least left open in case someone came in off the street and just wanted to talk to a police officer in private.
Mhm.
So you have that ability, plus you have the ability to use the one downstairs, I believe it's in the cell area, and use the one upstairs. So if you question 2 different people on the same incident,
Mhm.
out of eyesight and earshot.
Right.
So, right now it's tough, because it's interviewing for the cell.
So I don't think that that's a bad idea at all.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
personally, and I don't know, I'm still gonna keep saying this, but I personally think that the ladies' locker room is understated. I mean, just only have 4 lockers, I just
Mhm.
think that in the future, that could potentially be a problem. So,
Yeah,
I'm
even
just
though
wondering if
there's
there's still
movable
things we can
walls.
give and take,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
come up with the best solution for the department and just have a session so that we are all kind of on the same page as
Right.
what we're looking at.
The only thing I would say to that, in general, not specifically to what you're saying, is their contract is over, so if we would,
Tecton?
what's that? I got the final billing
Yeah.
end of last week. So they've really gone beyond what their scope was. So to be fair to them, we probably need to amend the contract to have them sit down with us, but I
You know,
think it would
if
be
I,
money,
if I may,
yeah, money well spent.
I understand what you're asking about, and I agree, that's what we need to do. But before we can even really do that, we need to decide, do we want to build a new station? Do we want to renovate the old building, or do we want to just spend the $1.2 million? Once we make that determination, we can do this exercise every week. Move the square footage, change this, add that, delete this, delete that. We could do that exercise every week and come up with a different square footage and a different number. We need to make a determination on what do we want to do with that building? Do we want a new station? Do we want to renovate the old building? Or do we would just want to spend the $1.2 million? Once we make that determination, then you can extend the contract with Tecton to start doing design work on it, where everyone has a say in it. The council has final approval, obviously, on it, saying, yes, we like this floor plan. This is the floor plan that we want. Then they'll go back and estimate it again. Then you'll have a number to put on a bond question. But since we've presented this the first time, 90 days have already gone by. You probably have another 120 days to go before you need to get something to the General Assembly if you want to have a question in November for the regular election, in order to get enabling legislation done. You can work with bond counsel after that fact, but those are just some of the timelines that we run into. And like I say, 90 days have gone by since they did their first presentation, and we still don't know what we're doing with it. And so,
I think you're asking her to commit, though, before she knows where the numbers are, she wants to.
you won't know that number. That's why I say we can do this every week. We can go back and do this every week. Let's add this, let's delete this, let's move this, let's add that. We can do this every week and keep coming up with something different all the time. They're just guesstimate on numbers based on what they're looking at for square footage when they did the value engineering. They came back and saying, okay, it's just based on a straight square foot number, based on their experience and their expertise doing this. That's all it's based on. Until we make a decision of what we want to do, we can keep doing this every week. You follow me?
I
If
follow
we
you.
if we make the decision to say, and I don't have a problem, I've said it before, we need to replace that station. We need to replace it. It's not really a police station. Let's admit it. We got a police department housed in a building that's not a police department. Or a police station, I should say. We need to rebuild it. We need to build a new station. We need to take that step and say, we're building a new station. Then we can go through this process of saying, how big is the women's locker room gonna be? How big is the men's locker room gonna be? Do we need more interview space? Because just going over it with the chief 3 weeks ago with Tecton, we started, well, if we move this, but then, well, we made this space smaller. Well, is it really big enough? No, it's really not big enough. So then we're looking to find space to add and expand this piece, and what are we gonna take from this piece? That's why I say it's an exercise we could keep doing every week. We could do this for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Until we know what we wanna do, though, if we don't wanna replace it and build a new station, then all of this is a waste of time.
Well, obviously, we want to do something. It's not a waste of time, but the point is we only came down like $2 million, right? I mean, going back and forth and hashing it out and making sure this is what we want to do, that's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure we're certain. I don't want it to be another project that we finish and we say, oh, we should have, could have, would have, right? Because we didn't do this right, and we didn't do that right, and we shortchanged this area, and we should have done it this way. I want to make sure it's right, especially if we're going to spend $18 million, because eventually it looks like that's where it's going to go, or maybe $16 million, right? Why can't we have a working session? I mean, I just don't feel it's pushing it to the voters just because we want to push it through and get it going. Let's make sure we got what we want first before we start pushing it. And I understand, we all know that we need a police station. That's not any question anyone can say we don't. But just forcing it and pushing it along before we're ready, I
Well,
don't feel comfortable with that.
It's not forcing the issue. We make a determination that we believe we need a new station. We make that determination. It has no price tag on it. We don't know that yet. It's a process. Then you start going through it. Until we make that determination that we want a new station, we can play with the numbers and move the square footage and what the cost is all over the place.
Mhm.
We need to determine that we want a new station. What do we need in a new station? Right? That's what you're looking at, and I agree with you. And the council does have a say in that, and the chief does have a say in that, right? But we can't do that without Tecton on board, and so we need to make a determination that we need a new station. We make that determination, then we keep moving forward. It keeps moving. It doesn't mean that there's a ballot question. We can even take the action that we want to put a ballot question out there and get the enabling legislation. That doesn't mean that we have to actually have it do. You follow me? We can always pull it back and saying, no, we're not ready to have that vote. We're not ready to put that vote out there. But we need to put the things in place, and that window is getting smaller and smaller and smaller as we keep discussing this. We have from now until November to figure this out, and really to get a number on it, we have even a shorter period of time. But it's not that we can't finalize this and get things. We meet with the chief, and he's like, yeah, I can do without this, and then the question comes up, and he's like, yeah, maybe I need a bigger space, and so, yeah, we do have to have that discussion to come up with a final plan or a final design, but we need to make the decision that we want to make a new police station first.
I'm with you, we need a new police station. But what you said earlier, at a previous meeting, you said, we need everybody on board. We need all 5 councils to be behind this. If it takes another meeting to get the vice president behind it, let's have another meeting. It's that simple. You know what I mean? Let's get her on board, and let's, if that's what she wants to be convinced, or to work these numbers a little better where she's comfortable with, I don't see the harm in doing another meeting if that's what it takes. She wants another meeting, I'm all for, I support that.
We're gonna have to take an action, and then we're gonna have to re-engage Tecton.
We could give them a per diem, you know, we could ask them what they would charge us to come
Yeah.
here for the day, and,
Probably better doing something like that than to try to,
yeah.
I don't think we can define the scope at this
Yeah,
point.
Mr. President, can I
We
just say
just-
something?
We just need them to show up with that floor plan and be able to sit down with a marker and make changes as is discussed. So I think we'd be better off, like you say, just pay him a fee
Pay them a fee to come out for the day.
per hour
Right, yeah.
fee.
I mean, it's money well spent, right? It's not gonna be
Right.
wasted money,
I
because
don't-
we wanna, if we're gonna do this project, we wanna say at the end that the chief is happy with it, the town is happy with it, and it's, there's
Yeah.
nothing that we can say,
I don't
"Oh,
disagree.
well, we
I-
messed up this project too, like, wanna make sure that we're gonna do it right. So
Right.
I don't see a problem with having a meeting, and if we
I
have
agree.
to spend a little bit
Yeah.
of extra money,
As long as you're okay with amending the contract, that's fine. My
If we
only
spend a
point
little
was,
money to
my
make
only
everybody
point-
feel comfortable, maybe save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Mr. Culver, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, as the chief was saying, I mean, I don't think any of us, or at least a good majority of us, are experts on building police stations. And, personally for me, I know that we need to do something. I'm not comfortable putting my vote on anything that's going to be in the, $15 to $18 million range, when I know if residents are going to be coming to me and saying, hey, why did you put it through at this price tag? I want to be able to say to them, as what Ms. Alves said, or asking those discovery questions of, well, why are there 3 interview rooms? Well, here's why we need it. There needs to be some sort of logic or translation from Tectron to us. And if it means having some sort of, per diem meeting with them, I think that's probably the best thing to do, because, again, if we're gonna be voting on this, and the goal, I guess, would be whatever decision we do, to do it unanimously, we all have to be on the same page, and we have to understand exactly how they're getting to that and the reasoning behind it, as opposed to just looking at a blueprint. So,
yeah, and I think the advantage of that too is you can get their take on what they did and what the difference between this is and the full-fledged design.
right, because when they were here, it was kind of, it was as quick as we could get through it. And, you know, we really couldn't get into too much detail with it. So I think just being able to kind of have a working session and kind of get what everyone is thinking, or, you know, there might be even things that aren't in here that you still think you may want, and we, you know,
Well,
this,
If I could just interject.
Yeah.
And I made this comment at the public hearing. So, everything in these prints, either renovated or new, is basically what we have now. But all those different rooms and functions of the police department, they put in their algorithm, and that's why the women's locker room looks like it does, and that's why the men's locker room, because it's based on 50 years, it's based on their professional projection of how police departments grow and how communities grow. So that $40-something thousand of their professional years of historically building police departments, that's what their computer program came up with. There's nothing different than what we have now. It's just, they project, if I want 3 lieutenants in this office, and they're like, oh, they share an office? I said, yeah, we can share the office. So they come up with a projection of square footage. Now, there's a difference in the cost now, just so people are clear about it. There's the brick and mortar cost, and then there's what to fill it. So there's 2 different costs, and there's a demo. So it's not a regular project. So I think if you want to reduce the scope of square footage based on, it's all based on square footage price of $640-something per square foot, that's all you're doing. You know, you can't really change, the interview rooms are the interview rooms. This is where we interview people, and this is where we need them, and this is what the size should be, and this is what goes in. So with that said, I think that, you know, I think you should be on board. I mean, as far as even earlier saying the explanation from the company that we just spent good money to do what they did, I think they did a great job, is just they take in the information and then they come out with a plan. This is the police department. So, yeah, I mean, I built a few houses, and every house I built that I lived in said, oh, maybe that door should have opened that way, and this window shouldn't have been here, it should have been there. There's always gonna be second guessing. But the basic principle is, the things that you need, and the best practices for accredited agencies nationwide, is what you need in the police department. And the other ones that came up with the algorithm projections of what is needed in the next 50 years. So now looking at it, the last meeting we had, again, they just sat down and said, if you look at it, what do you think common sense-wise, what you're looking at? But they're still gonna tell you, but I still really think you need 7 cells, because that's what our program says. You can go with 5, but this is what they say. And I get it, but that, you can just, like, we're trying to explain that, and Mr. Vadney, yeah, you can cut it all up, but you just said it perfectly, but you don't wanna do it wrong. But I think by cutting up and taking this out, and taking that out, I think you may be going down that road of maybe not listening to the professional that says you need that. And I get it's a lot of money, I live in town, I pay a lot of taxes. But I'm just trying to, set a clearer picture. You know, I just didn't sit down and say, I want this to be this size, and I want this room, bathrooms go with, an executive office has bathrooms. They put a bathroom in there. I mean, just things like that, closets for coats go in offices. Storage, what do you have for storage? We have traffic, we have a tow behind signboard, a radar trailer, all those, okay, we need storage for that. So it's almost like a common sense thing. Well, how many kids in your house are 5? How many drive? 3. Well, you need 3-car garage. You know, it's something like that, instead of parking on the side. So I think, yeah, at the end of the day, when it comes time to, getting that bill design from a company, you sit down and you shrink it and move it around to whatever you think it is. But everything in here is a functionality of the police department. It's not like extra, or it's just that's the way the computer program went, and that's what we have now, and they just put it in and came up with it. So I do think that the biggest cost, or the largest square footage was in the municipal court. So it got shrunk down to a training room, a conference training room, which is, again, best practices, they said a 30-person room. So if you have other agencies like FBI, state police, say we're gonna raid a house in town that has, major drug trafficking, major weapons, cache. And we had an operation like that at one time in the state. You know, 5 FBI agents, several troopers, several people from I'm just trying to come up with an example of, a screen like this to show, a blueprint layout, an overhead, what doors we're gonna enter, what rings of fire we're gonna have to secure outer ground, the inner grounds, the inner house, the outer house. So most of the things that we sat down and spoke about were just what we do, what our statistics were, what we already have now in that school, the elementary school, and then just put it into a print, that's all. So if that makes anything clear. But I would love to have a meeting with, I'd love to attend and discuss all this.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just want to let people know for the record.
Yep.
We did not run a Zoom meeting when we had our last meeting. Tecton set up the Zoom so they could talk to us because they didn't want to drive up from Hartford for the night. They had a conflict. So they met with us on their Zoom. We didn't run a Zoom meeting. We had our public meeting like we always do, and the public was invited. They joined us on their Zoom link for
Okay.
everyone to see.
Okay. Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Nordstrom? Anything on this, this report?
So
Is there a
what-
motion to enter the report into the record?
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the report dated 12/13/2021 from the Smithfield Municipal Building Review Task Force.
That's a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thanks, Mr. Nordstrom.
Right. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Discussion by council vote or other action on update of the Hallowell Review Committee. Mr. Corvo, anything new for us this week?
Yeah, actually, would you mind at the same time, we could also move up, D under new business?
Yep, that's a good idea. Yep.
Mr. President, may I convolute the issues here, what's going on? May
Yeah,
I-
please.
may I
Yep.
enter in? There seems to be a procedural on the appointment to the Personnel Board. That's the town administrator's appointment with the concurrence of the town council. So in dialogue with the solicitor, if I may suggest that somebody that voted in the affirmative, everybody did, just take it to put it back on, bring it back for reconsideration, second it, then vote on it.
Oh,
And then-
because we voted on it, but that's your appointment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
make a motion that we reconsider the appointment to the Personnel Board.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Mr. Zelinski, do you have anybody that you would like to recommend to the,
I
Personnel
do, Mr. President and council members. Sandra Soares, I think
Okay.
pretty much everyone is familiar with Sandra Soares. She is seeking to be, serve on the Personnel Board. She has in the past worked on the volunteered on the Juvenile Hearing Board, and she comes with over 25 years of experience of working in operations, HR, and social services, so she does have a strong grasp of the skills required for this. So my nomination, my appointment to this is Sandra Soares.
thank you. I don't think you need council approval for that. It's your appointment.
Yes,
You do-
but just take a, if you don't.
We'll take a vote to approve.
You do, in this particular item, it's the appointments with.
He appoints with us ratifying it.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the town administrator's recommendation for Sandra Soares for a 1-2-year term on the Personnel Board that would expire 11/30/2023.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Getting back to you, Mr. Corvo, on the Hallowell Review Committee. We're going to move D on the new business. Discussion by council vote or other action on engineering services for hazardous material testing for the Hallowell School. Before you even go on, I'm going to make a motion here to table this one particular item, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I am under the understanding, Mr. Zelinski, you might be able to back me on this, that could possibly be another report already out there with exactly this information on it. So instead of saving, not wasting, but spending the $6,000, we're gonna give it till the next meeting to try to locate that report. And, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
yes, Mr. President, yes.
so we'll give it, to-
I believe that there is a report that's out there from previous studies. So,
So
thank
that,
you.
so this would be on the, what, in January,
yeah, whatever, yeah, it's
the next one, the first
Yes.
of January? Okay.
Third.
yeah.
Not the third, we
Or the
delayed it.
following on the 17th or the 18th?
Nope.
Oh, the
Thank you.
5th, the day,
Yeah.
oh, the one, 'cause
Yeah, we
moved the
extended
date.
it
Yeah,
2
'cause we
days.
moved the date, that's
Yeah.
the
It was
5th.
skiing.
Yeah, it's on a
Yeah,
Wednesday.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine.
So you don't have an objection to that? Because
No, I don't have an objection. I don't know if there needs to be any action on that, or,
Yeah, I just have to motion to table that report. I mean, table that request at this time.
Mr. President, make a motion that we table it. Table it, revise it, the action on engineering services for hazardous material testing at Hallowell School.
Thank you. We have a second?
second?
Any further discussion? So it's not that anybody's against it, we just want to see. if
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
any
no, it
report.
makes total sense.
Okay.
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Was there anything else on the Hallowell, or did I just steal your
You,
thunder?
you stole everything.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Was getting ready and everything.
Okay, moving on to new business. Discussion by council vote of action on Rhode Island Department of Transportation aerial easement in conjunction with Route 146 Reconstruction Project. The plan is not here tonight. Did you want to take this?
Sure. Mr. President, this is a standard easement, as we're well aware, the Rhode Island Department of Transportation is going to alleviate, probably do away with all the problems at Sales Hill Road, and 146 is one of 2 red lights from Providence to Worcester. It's going to, so it's on Plat 17, Lot 95, easterly side, that's heading north toward Woonsocket. Roughly about, the frontage is about 250 feet, and what they're looking to do is get an aerial easement, which means that the arms of utility poles and wires will be roughly 1.5 to 2 feet over the property that the town owns. Now, they're currently doing this with private ownership as well, but this property that the town owns, and it's gonna, roughly, even though the frontage is much long, not much longer, it's 250 plus, this particular easement is for 114 feet, roughly about 2 feet wide. So it'll facilitate utilities in that area. And for this, for the standard offering, the town will receive $1. I'd pay them $1 to get the job done. So it's kind of it's up before council for consideration.
Okay. He's a little formal, the way I guess he has a,
You're gonna find that he is very thorough and well-versed,
yeah,
so I'm impressed with so far.
What's that, the redesign?
no, the way
The town planner?
the way he did the
Oh, the way the
resolution.
resolution is,
Yeah.
No, but I'm just saying, no, are they looking at do they have a plan? Are they starting with a plan, a new design?
They do. I was fortunate to see it early last winter. It's not for public release yet because, as you know, anything can
Right.
change. There's simple things like easements.
Mhm. Yep.
Businesses are concerned, but from what I've seen, I would say that it's well thought
It's
out.
it's
going
progressing.
to allow traffic to flow in all directions. And until now, in the springtime, I believe RIDOT is going to start to release the information. So
So
what I was
it's
fortunate.
progressing now.
It is progressing,
Okay,
and
good.
we are anticipating spring release of information.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the town administrator to execute a full release of a RIDOT aerial easement in conjunction with the Route 146 reconstruction project and authorize signature for it.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Once they vote, I'll go in.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Council, kindly enough to sign the document.
A discussion by council, vote of other action on scheduling a public hearing for proposal of Council 94, AFSCME, AFL-CIO Local 937 contract for a 3-year period, 7/1/2021 to 6/30/2024. Mr. Zelinski, do you want to be?
Yeah, Mr. President, what I'm seeking here is to set the first date so that we can have public hearing. Once the date is set, I'll put, if under the council solicitor's advice, we will certainly put that document that'll be before you up on the town website. So we're looking for a date for the first public hearing.
Madam Clerk, did you, want to give us a date? The 5th? Oh, yeah? Thanks. Okay. All right.
Just clarification, the budget committee needs to review this as well, or have they already done that?
They have, they said the form of it was correct. Actually, that could be in your packet, Mr.
No, there's nothing in
You
there?
don't? My apologies.
Okay, but no, as long as the budget committee's reviewed it, and then they issue a letter, once they issue that letter, then we have the 10, then we gotta wait 10 days to have the public hearing, and all that fun stuff.
Actually, a budget committee member was here, left.
Yeah, I did see
Yeah, so
Dominic, yeah.
Dominic was here to discuss it, but he said, I can't stick around long, and he left, so. Yeah, it was met with full approval of the budget committee. Acceptance of what was presented to
Right.
them at this point in
Mhm.
time.
So, is that we're going to go with the 5th? Okay,
What day?
the 5th,
Is that gonna give you enough time?
the sheet? All right, if you think you can do it, that's fine.
If not, Mr. President, if for some reason with the holiday season crunch with getting advertisements in, if not, would it be acceptable to council that we go to the very next?
You want to just do
For the
that?
18th.
You want to just do that?
Why don't we set it for the 18th, and then we'll be sure that we meet all the requirements.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Set it for the 18th.
Yeah.
That way they would-
Yeah, plenty of-
We make sure everything is covered, all bases are covered.
Unless there's no urgency on your end, Mr. Zelinski?
I'm sorry,
There's no urgency on your end to get that in before that? or-
Well, everything is retro, so it's really not a case where the union members would be harmed by this.
Okay,
They did take a vote, and it was approved by the membership, so now it's entirely up to the town council to accept it. At that point, it'll be the contract.
okay. All right, we'll go with that, Joanne. Thanks.
I'm sure they're anxious, but they know the details.
They understand that it's retro, and
Yes.
they know how fast government works.
Discussion by council vote or other action on proposed veterans exemption increases for fiscal year 2023. Mr. Zelinski, do you want to take this one too?
Yes, Mr. President. So what we have before is, we're going to have to seek state legislation to pass this, and then hopefully it's successful for exemptions for the veterans. Once that's done, we'll have to make a change to the town ordinance. And that's going to be proposed to meet the following proposals, which you can see that veterans, which are now current, hang on, I got paperwork all over here. So veterans, which are currently receiving, veterans and their widows, that's called Schedule A and B. Veteran A and Widows B is $45.50. And what I'm proposing to do, and hopefully the town council, you can change that amount, by the way. If you feel more magnanimous, it's entirely up to you. It will affect the budget. But what's before you is $200 for veterans and their widows from $45.50. Now, also 100% disabled currently is $91. I presented an increase to $350. Gold Star from Gold Star parents of deceased family members of it. Start again, Paul. Parents of a soldier, or Navy, Airman, Coast Guard, anybody that passed away in the service of their country, $350. Prisoner of war, $350. 100% disabled veteran from $91 to $350. The 100% veteran classification is set by the Veterans Administration. They take a look at the veteran's history, and they determine that. So basically, some rough math, if we look at the real estate that is currently at $16, $3, 34 cents, 0.6, let's just round it to $16.35. In order to meet that $350 exemption for the veterans, they would have to be allotted $21,412 as an exemption on their property, and you multiply that by 16, I'm gonna use easy math, $16.35, it comes to $350. So those are the basic numbers. The Budget Committee has looked at it, they're comfortable with it. Again, I want to reiterate, this is what I have proposed. It's got to get legislation through the state. It has to come before, if that's successful, then it comes before us to change our laws. And it's entirely up to council if they wish, whatever the number they feel is appropriate for our veterans, gold stars, disabled. Can I just add something? Yeah, the solicitor wants to add something.
Yep.
So, just so
You
you,
want?
just so you're clear, under state law, towns have taken two different approaches to it. They either say, we're gonna give someone a tax, there's confusion here, a tax credit. Like, for instance, if you look at it, it says the town of Charleston will give a tax credit in the amount of $120. Or this is the state law now, or the state law, various towns will say a $10,000 exemption or a $32,000 exemption. What we had done, it looks like in the past, our ordinance had referred to a tax exemption, but I believe they meant tax credit. They just used the wrong word. So I think the point that the administrator is trying to make is, whatever policy decision that you want to make to accomplish that 300, let's assume you agree on the $350 tax credit, whether we multiply it out as an exemption as described by the administrator, or we put it in the state law as a credit. So depends on, once you put that number in, you're stuck with that number. So if you want to say not to exceed and a higher number, and then in your budget process give a lower number, that's something to think about too. But I want to let you know, once we freeze it in the legislation, we're stuck there. Like, that's why we have to go back now. If you do the math, we exceed what the state law has authorized us to do. Does that make sense to everyone? Or did I just confuse matters? If I did, I apologize.
No, I think,
In other words, if you want to give a $350 tax credit, the state legislation has to be amended to say one or two things. Town of North Smithfield is hereinafter authorized to pass an ordinance to give a $350 tax credit. Or the town of Smithfield is hereinafter authorized to issue a tax exemption for $21,700, so that when you multiply that times your tax rate of you take that off someone's property value, take that $21,000 off a $100,000 house, and then they're getting that credit equivalent to $16.35 times that $21,000. That's the two ways it works.
Based on that tax rate on that time, so if you don't update it every year,
That's my point.
it can grow, and so I think that the way to do it is the way we've done it, but not worded it properly, is have a tax credit. And
That's my
that's
point.
exactly what we do right now. I went through it with my dad and my mom. It's a tax credit that they apply for.
But
We
that's
call it
not
an
what it
ex-
says.
We call it an exemption, but it needs to be a tax credit. So we apply to the state with enabling legislation that allows us to do that. Then we redo our ordinance where it says it's a tax credit, not a tax
It
exemption.
just seems cleaner.
And
And that way you're given a fixed number, and as the Councilman said, you're not getting caught up in your tax rate changing.
Or any assessment, you know,
I
it's
see.
just clean.
Otherwise, if you do it by exemption, then
You either got to revisit it all the time, or the number can grow.
all the number will be growing. So that was my point, it will grow, right? 16, if you say you got a $1,000 tax exemption in this year, and the rate is $16, they got a $16 break. If you say you got a $10,000 exemption next year, and the rate goes up to $17, you've given them a $17 break. If that's your intention, that's fine. I just wanted you to understand the difference between a tax credit, that's a fixed number, and a tax exemption that will grow every time you increase your tax rate.
But not to muddle it, but when you do a reval and the tax rate goes down, so does their exemption.
That's a good point,
So
too.
it's,
right.
historically, it's always been a tax credit. even though it's listed as a tax exemption, they apply, they get their $50 tax exemption that they call it, but it's a tax credit they apply for.
Okay.
I believe it was 1983 when it was written for the town charter. And then it was state enabling 44-3-4, 1948. Now, I get that information from our esteemed solicitor. So, yeah, it had been a credit
Yeah.
going back to
Mhm.
83.
You know what, the place is empty. If you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what's the logic of going to the General Assembly and getting enabling legislation passed before you have the public hearing? Because perhaps at the public hearing, they'll hear information and may sway them to put in a different type of formula than what you just, I mean, I'm sorry, but this, I was served on the budget committee as the chair in the 2015 annual.
Have them come to,
Asked to
have them
look
come
at
to the
this.
podium.
Just go on the record, be on the podium.
Sure. It's not a simple task to come up with an equitable way to distribute the tax exemptions. And you can't just look, in my opinion, and the opinion of the Budget Committee at the time, and I think Mrs. Farrisee would as the chair who succeeded me and had this task in front of her as well, will also agree with my statement that you cannot just look at one particular number or exemption and then make a determination that has any real true merit or based on fact by just looking at the veterans exemption. You have to look at every factor, and it's an awesome, awesome task. It's mind-boggling. Because in some communities, the veterans exemption, they might be able to get a veterans exemption and a senior exemption. But the total amount of the exemption is capped. So if they qualify for those two exemptions, even though you say, I'm going to give you $200 for the veterans exemption and $1,000 for being a senior citizen, if they have in their ordinance a cap of no one resident can receive more than $600 in exemptions, then they only get 600 in exemptions. So when you look at this number on this paper, it means nothing, because you don't know what the factors are. Do they also give an exemption on a car and the home, or is it just one or the other? Because we just give one or the other. So I think it's crazy to go forward with this to get the General Assembly to approve it, because I think if you listen to the facts and base your decision on facts, you might actually see that this is not what you need to do or should be doing. When the Budget Committee was asked to do this, when I was the chair, we dug into it, but it was also during the budget time. And we realized quickly that this was a major, major task to analyze. So how the Budget Committee, you've got a brand-new Budget Committee, one person is a carryover, and he's not been on that long. To look at this page and say, yeah, those numbers are accurate, okay, I'm sorry, it has no value. You also have a reevaluation. You have to raise the taxes automatically on, you may have to raise the taxes automatically as your depreciation on the tangible from National Grid hits you. That's going to cause a tax increase for everybody. And you don't do this type of thing, in my opinion, in a reevaluation year, because people are confused enough with what happened to them. You also have, I think a better way to do it would be to have, rather than the Budget Committee or any committee do this, I think this might be a project that many communities would be interested in, having done an analysis. So, you might want to approach the City League and Towns and say, do you think if we all chipped in $100 a piece, every community, or 200 or whatever, we could hire, a group from the Tax Assessors Association of Rhode Island to come up with this analytical formula and showing you, is it more beneficial to have a low veterans exemption and a higher or an income-based senior exemption? There are 26 communities in this state that give a senior exemption based on income. And the income ranges to under $17,000 to $56,000. And as you make more money, your exemption goes down. And as you're a poorer person and you have a low income, your exemption is much higher. If I read in the paper correctly, the goal here, according to Mr. Zielinski, was to stop a veteran from losing their home? Why can't we be worried about everybody losing their home? And why can't we write something up as the other 26 communities in the state did, with an income-based qualifier as well as a basic flat exemption? And a veteran can take benefit of both, the veteran's exemption that they're getting and also on a financial need. I'm not, I'm sure I'm going to look like a communist saying, oh, I don't think the veterans should be increased here. My father was a World War II veteran, saw action in the South Pacific, was so traumatized by it he never talked about it to us, but I do think that you should be striving to get equity for tax relief for everybody, not just for the veterans. I quickly looked at the list of veterans who qualified, which I got from the tax assessor, and I said, what's the average home assessment in town? And it's $290,000. I took the first 10 names on the list, looked up the assessed values, and their houses are assessed at $304,000. I don't think they're at risk of losing their home if they're living in a home that's greater value than 50% of the people in the town. So I think there's a lot of work. This isn't just, oh, this is a nice sheet. This is like, I'm dumbfounded that this is what we're basing a decision on.
Well, let me ask you a question. I asked it, I had you come up because this is not my area, this is your area. Why does it send everything for a loop? Why does it screw everything up if you just give them a $350 credit? Why does it mess up the whole budget and
Well,
everything?
no, I'm looking at this, and you made a decision based on these numbers in front of you, okay? Burrillville has a circuit breaker, what they refer to as a circuit breaker exemption, based on income for senior citizens. So, yeah, they get $225,000 there, but they're also giving relief to the seniors on the circuit breaker. Foster has seniors. The exemption increases as they get older. The Gloucester, they increase is based on their age. As they get older, the increase for the exemption goes up. All of these communities do it by a different method. Somebody has to sit down and figure out what's the formula that we use to equalize the playing field here. I mean, just, for some communities give, if you have a spouse who's also a veteran, they get 2 exemptions. And then I'm looking at the list of exemptions that she gave me, and I figured out the average, but then I'm looking at the list and I'm saying to myself, there's over 50 properties in this thing that the property is owned by a trust. I don't even know if you can legally give an exemption to a trust. Suppose the owner, the veteran, is not the trustee. How is that? I mean, that's a question for the soliciting answer. There's a million factors that go into this. And you need to look at all of them, not just this little sheet that, I don't think you'll find an experienced budget committee that would say, okay, let's jump on this one. I think you need to really consider some very analytical method of equalizing the playing field and getting benefit for the most number of people in town and targeting the neediest.
If I may. Mr. Clifford, I'm not, I can't recall my exact statement about, I'm sure I didn't say force them out of their homes, veterans. I think it was more on the line of, let's help them turn their thermostat up from 67 to 68 degrees. Now, if I said that, I'll stand corrected, but I don't believe my intent was to make it very dramatic or impassioned to say we're going to force them to keep them in their homes. If I did, I apologize, but my intent was, if that amount of money helps them keep their temperature up another degree, I'm all for it, because I can afford to heat my house, and I'm choosing not to because of the escalating prices in the volatile fuel market. So that's all
I agree with that, Paul, and that you were quoted as saying that plus the line about I don't want to see any veteran lose their home in the article in the newspaper.
Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you.
They did include the other one as well.
Thank you.
However, that's my argument, is you're doing this because you don't want them to not be able to turn up the heat. What about everybody in town, especially the poor people who live in town? Because there are poor people who live in town.
There are.
And we're one of 10 communities that doesn't have an extra income-based exemption for elderly. And, you know, like Barrington, I left it at home, I think, but I've got the sheet of Barrington. They go to 56 or 60,000 and it starts at zero. You know, if you earn, the people who get the most exemption have an income of 17,000 or less. They need it. They're the ones who aren't gonna be able to turn up their heat. And when you give an exemption to this group, any one group, you have to pay for that by increasing the tax rate for everybody else. So if you don't address the truly poor people in this, you're gonna be given an exemption to a veteran who, God bless him, is living in a $600,000 house with a nice fat income coming in, and the poor guy at the end of the spectrum in town is gonna be paying for it. It's like the stupid federal government, sending home the $2,000 checks to everybody in America, whether they need it or not. It's like, what was the logic in that, and what's the logic in doing this? If it's just to make you feel good that you did something for the veterans, you could do something that would be structured in a way that it would do something for more than just the veterans who are in need, but the elderly who are in need. The one thing that we have is that stupid tax plan for the elderly that's based on income. Every district in the state has something similar to that, but you'd have to be on food stamps and below the poverty level to qualify for it. Every other community has 26 of them have a tiered system with like a $5,000 range in income. So, you know, I would, if you can find, I have all that information. I thought there was actually gonna be a public hearing on this tonight, and that's what I was prepared to speak to, but I didn't see it correctly in the agenda. So I would say, I really would encourage you not to jump to the General Assembly, but to have your public hearing first, and then make a decision based on all the facts, not on this little sheet. Thanks.
Thanks. So you're not requesting any action on that, it's just for an update?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, are you gonna go forward and submit the enabling legislation?
Well, there's no action, we're not taking any action on that tonight.
Mr. President, can I just,
Yeah.
make a, I don't know, maybe if I can work with Mr. Clifford and then bring it back to the council so that at least we can kind of see what the other towns are doing, and we can talk about it a little bit more thoroughly and make sure we are addressing the people that need it in town.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can work on it, and, you know, if you work on it with him or somebody, that's up to you. But yeah, I don't have a problem with that. You have a problem with that? Are we good?
It's the mask, it's the wire. I don't have a problem with it. I would like to bring one to fruition, the veterans, and if we want to work on seniors, low to moderate income people, tax breaks, seniors, anybody over the age of 55, I believe, is considered a senior citizen, and they're considered to be low to moderate, not by the federal government for grant writing purposes. So if they're 55 and older, they're considered to be low to moderate, regardless of their income. Now, getting back to what Mr. Clifford was talking about on the senior stabilization plan, that was means tested. There's percentages of income in there, some basic requirements. You have to have been a town resident for X amount of years, and it's based on a percentage of your salary. So there's kind of a safeguard. But I'm all for if Mr. Clifford will work with Councilor Rouse, because he's definitely well-versed in these, and it would be great to have him take a look at that.
I'm just asking for you to consider having a public hearing before you submit enabling legislation, which I think he intends on doing, because that's the order that he said he was gonna do it in. Enabling legislation for this, and then after you have a public hearing, if you decide you should have had something different, you'll have to go back to the General Assembly and say, oh, we submitted that, but we shouldn't have, this is what we really.
Right, but I'm not gonna ask him to make the decision, we're not gonna make the decision at this moment, but I hear you, that's why I had you come up here.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking for a decision on, can we agree that you'll have the public hearing before the administrator submits any plan to the state? This, by the way, is Barrington. This is their veterans exemptions, and this is their tiered by financial need going from a $200 exemption for a very wealthy senior to a $3,250 credit to a wealthy senior, to a poor senior. I mean, that's off your bill. That's a tax credit, not an exemption.
Right. I kind of see it like you. You see that's two separate issues, the seniors. It is, the seniors and the vets, where what we're looking at is basically a way of saying thank you for our freedom, thank you for everything we have. It's really a thank you to the veterans more than an assist. That's the way I look at it.
Well,
Of procedure, until the council directs legislation to be drafted, no legislation is being drafted.
Right.
The TA's presented his proposal, you're gonna consider it, and when you decide to take action, that's when action will be taken.
Okay.
Action's not taken without council direction.
Okay. Yeah, so we're not gonna. Anybody else have anything on this one? We're good? Okay, let's move on. Now we get that. They're gonna go, discussion by council vote or other action on payment of invoices. Mr. Jesus isn't here. So if you look, we just have, basically, this is for the track and field over at the high school. And it's been signed off by Mr. CP, Mr. St. Jean, and Mr. Lombardi. So the first one is for the Field Turf USA's change order number 1.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve change order number 1 to Field Turf USA in the amount of $80,231 and authorize the administrator to sign it.
It's a reduction of 80,000. Okay. Yeah. You don't get that too often, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further comments or discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Vote included authorizing you to sign it.
Oh, thank you. And now we have Field Turf USA, AIA document G702.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the application for payment in the amount of $353,888.24. And that's pay request number 2 dated 11/30/21.
Yeah, it's
353,888.24. That's the amount that's been certified.
okay.
It's on line number 8.
There it is, I see it, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second on this? Any discussion, comments?
If you just notice on there too, we had a discussion last week or last meeting
Yeah.
about this. They did show the full credit to the two, between the two change orders, and if you do notice, there's still $47,546 in a balance that still has not been paid. So I'm assuming they have not signed off on the punch list. That's the retainage that's on every municipal job. So the retainage has been reduced to 5%, but that's still sitting there, so it's not completely paid off yet. So
Okay.
if there are issues that are not done, there is money still owed to them, so.
I know the kids have been using the track. I don't know about any, the public at this point, but,
No, it's still locked, and I went to the school committee meeting last week and asked for an update of when they would be opening it, and they said that they were still working out some procedures on how to manage the field and the time. But the kids are, on the weekend, they're just climbing the fence and they're on it.
Well, they park in the parking lot and they walk up and then jump the 4-foot
Right,
fence.
yeah. So, you know, I don't know what the
Mhm.
difference is. You might as well just open it because, you know, now they're just climbing the fence, so.
So part of the, coming up with the procedurals, has it been indicated at all as far as any type of maintenance schedule? Because obviously that's what got us into the issue in the first place.
They said they were gonna be working that out. That's what, Mr. St. Jean was talking about. He said management and maintenance schedules but, I mean, at some point, I think we need to know and let people know when they can start using it. So maybe in the first of the year, we can maybe get an update from them.
At a joint meeting with the council, I
Exactly.
mean, with the school committee,
Great idea.
and put it on the agenda.
Mhm.
Okay, so we already have a motion and a second on that. Joanne, roll call?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to executive session. Discussion by council, vote or other action around General Law 42, 46-5, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. Discussion by council, vote or other action on opioid action suit. Review estimated potential settlement amounts, J&J interstate allocation. Review estimated potential settlement amounts, Big Three distributors, interstate allocation. Approve an executive or subdivision Jensen settlement participation form. Approve an executive or subdivision distributed settlement participation form. Discussion, vote, or other action on notice of violation and appeal, Buxton Hollow, 300 Buxton Street, North Smithfield, Plat 1, Lot 35.
Mr. President, I make a motion, we move in, that we recess into executive session.
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. We can just shut it down.